We're at the American Humanist Association conference in Chicago, and we're here with John Lancie. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Well, I am indeed John Lancie.
Cool.
Good. 1 for 1.
And you're an actor, and you're here to receive the Humanist Award for the Arts question
For the
mark?
arts, right.
Congratulations,
right.
by
Thank
the way.
You.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So let's go through. So you are known for Breaking Bad. I know you from West Wing, because I literally just watched that episode 2 days ago. It's fine. What else might our listeners know you from?
Well, probably Star Trek is the part. Yes.
I've never seen Star Trek.
We're very big sci-fi nerds, as you could tell.
Yeah. He's never seen Star Wars, though, so... I don't do movies. Anyway, so people know you from which Star Trek?
Next Generation, the Voyager, and Deep Space Nine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I know you, because, like Jessica said, so I normally don't do sci-fi stuff, but I saw this amazing video you made for the Openly Secular Project, where you came out and said you're openly secular, and I realized, I wonder if that's a different type of challenge when you work in Hollywood, when you work in movies, TV. Do you run across a lot of people who are not very religious? Do you guys talk about religion when you're on set or taking breaks on scenes?
Not really. I mean, the actors do not normally spend a lot of time with each other. We do a job. We get to know each other. I just finished doing a play in Cleveland at the Cleveland Playhouse, and I was there for 2.5 months, I think it was. And I get to know people well then. But when you're doing a TV show, certainly coming in to do guest star roles and what have you, it's really mostly the work. But also the community of actors tends to be generally a more liberal community.
What sort of, especially when it's something like Star Trek that has this kind of myth, a secular myth of sorts, I wonder, was there anything about the role you played there that just connected with you on a personal level?
Well, Gene Roddenberry was decidedly secular, and Star Trek is in fact a secular show, a humanist secular show. The irony is, and I should say, and so am I. And the irony is that I play a god. So there you have it.
So how do those themes play out through on a sci-fi stage? Like, does the sci-fi aspect of it give you sort of the opportunity to explore bigger themes that are more metaphorical than direct?
Well, it isn't so much about what it gives me. I mean, these things are written.
Sure.
So that would be really a writer's question. Mm-hmm. But the answer is yes. Yeah. And I think that what Gene came up with was the canvas at the time, all the way up until 1965 or so, had been, for many, many years, had been Westerns. In other words, human stories told against the backdrop of Westerns. That was the canvas. Mm-hmm. But that had sort of come to its end, and people were looking for another canvas to paint on. And he really ushered in the sci-fi canvas in the most popular way. I mean, as a kid, this is 1965. I know as a kid in the late 50s, I was really attracted to science fiction. But to be able to bring it onto into television was a big deal.
As someone who has done Shakespeare, as someone who's done the classical actors repertoire, and going to Star Trek and doing this wide variety of acting, what is the difference between the type of roles you might play in something as classic as Shakespeare versus something that you might see on TV today?
Well, it doesn't. The medium is not the issue. You can do a bad play, a bad television show, and a bad movie. I mean, not well written. Or you can do really wonderfully well-written shows. I mean, so it's not really the medium. Some of the people have asked me over the years is, why would we see so many actors, let's say, on Star Trek, but also have seen them on L.A. Law or The West Wing, and then Star Trek. What is the connection there? The connection is that these are really word-heavy shows, and so usually actors who have had some theatrical experience, Shakespeare, are more accustomed to being able to handle heavy word-oriented shows.
So you're saying Gilmore Girls is next?
What's that?
Gilmore Girls is next, just rapid fire everything.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah, and it seems like we're kind of in the middle of a television renaissance. Like
Absolutely.
talking about Breaking Bad, and I guess West Wing is no longer hasn't been on the air for a sec. But you're right; they're so word heavy and they're thematic and interesting, and because really TV does give you an opportunity to dive into a character the way you can't really accomplish in a movie because
right, and that
yes,
has changed now with Netflix and Amazon and what have you, because now and the way in which we watch shows, they can, first of all, they don't have to adhere to a broad audience spectrum of tastes. They can really hone in on something, and then if they find something that works well and it is really slotted for a narrow audience, then what they're doing is creating many of those shows, putting them out all at the same time, and it's just changing the way in which we are storytelling.
Is it better as an actor now because there are so many opportunities, so many different venues for shows, or is it worse because the audience is so fragmented?
Well, it's not, I mean, better or worse. It depends. Listen, if you are a 20-year-old, 25-year-old guy or a 25-year-old woman, you're going to be working more than if you are my age. I went through that period of time, and then during that period of time, I worked a lot. Now they don't have roles for 65-year-old guys quite in the same way. So when you say, is it better? Well, it depends. Most actors, most of the time, are concerned about the work that they're doing and hoping that they will have some work when they're finished the work that they're doing now. And so you sit not in the middle of a circle where you go, oh, well, now it'll be a movie, and the next thing will be... No, you sit on a kind of a railroad track hoping that there's going to be a train that you're going to be able to jump on.
With all the people you've worked with, what do you think defines someone who is a successful actor or a good actor who... what is it about the good actors you've worked with, I guess, that makes them so accessible and never lacking for work?
Well, I don't know of... frankly, I know of very few actors who are never lacking for work. It's such a huge question, what you've just asked me. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you could do a brilliant piece of work in a brilliant show, and if it's not seen, it doesn't matter. Or you could do a sort of a mediocre job in a show that is extraordinarily popular, and could be still even a mediocre show and still be extraordinarily popular, and you have a meal ticket for a long, long time. There are many, many tremendously talented actors who do not work nearly as much as they should.
And what's the solution to that? Is there one? Is it just we need more writers, we need more opportunities, and that'll be solved? Or is that's the downside of acting?
Well, that's just the downside. I mean, there are many, many, many actors, far more actors than there are roles or jobs or anything like that. And being able to eke out a living and then maybe get a little bit further along and really, be in where you are truly a professional who only does the acting is tough, and it also requires It requires skill. It requires luck. It requires tremendous perseverance.
Do you have a preference for theater versus? I mean, I know you said it's about the writing, it's about the product. Do you, given your choice, would you say I want to stick to theater, or I like to do television, or I'd rather do a movie? Do you have something that you like, or do you like to change it up?
I don't have a preference. I mean, frankly, I guess my preference right now is tasty morsels. I don't want to be involved in a show that lasts 7 years. I mean, oh my God. And I just finished a show, which was, as I said, I think it was 2.5 months long, and the first 8 weeks were great, but the last 2, it was like, oh, it's enough. It's time to move on. Right.
So let's talk about, I guess, why we're here, humanism. So you consider yourself a humanist, an atheist? Do you have a label that you prefer?
I don't consider myself an atheist because I never considered myself a theist.
Okay.
So I think that's self-explanatory.
Sure. So you didn't grow up with religion?
I didn't, and as a matter of fact, I'm doing a speech tonight, which sort of follows that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So go on. Ask me what your.
So what label would you use, or does it not matter?
I don't really think of a label. I mean, I have no problems with any sort of religion as long as it's not politicized. Seemingly, some religions, once they get politicized, seem to bring in a lot of superstition and ignorance and bigotry into the proceedings. So that's where my biggest issue is, and frankly, my biggest issue, I guess, is really where there should be any discussion about what science education is. I was on the road around the country with a play about the Scopes monkey trials.
Inherit the Wind?
No, it was.
Fail.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
You tried.
It was the actual trial transcripts. We did the trial transcripts.
What were you?
I was Clarence Darrow, and Ed Asner was William Jennings Bryan.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be a good show.
It was a wonderful show. It was a wonderful show, and it was really surprising to me to find how many people were, thought the Earth was created in 4004 BC. I mean, I had sort of heard that at the time, I thought, well, that's just kind of a really bizarre sub group of flat Earth remnants and things like that, and that was very concerning to me, and it's still very concerning to me because I don't think that these kids that are they are not at the age of consent, and they're given a lot of disinformation, and then they go out into their adulthood, and they're first of all, they're not prepared to see the world as it is, and they go through a fair amount of disillusionment, or more to the point is that they get kind of thrown overboard because most of the world doesn't operate this way.
You understand why so many people, at least in the community we're in right now, do label themselves as humanists or atheists, and why it's important to them, though?
No.
Really? I think part of the reason is when you're surrounded by so many religious people and you're not religious, they're kind of, and when you're surrounded by a lot of people who are religious, it helps to have a label, I think, to say you're part of something. It doesn't mean you're part of any specific community or anything, but I remember when I stopped being religious, that word atheist held meaning for me, only because this seems to describe something that I am that very few other people are. And when I met other people who use that same label, I don't know, it felt special in that sense. Like, I know something about you, and I probably know the kind of journey you've taken, even if I don't know much else.
Well, I'm not that attracted to that. I mean,
you're not alone, by the way, in that.
I mean, I just don't really feel that that's particularly necessary. because there are oftentimes labels which you might not want to be have tacked on you. So I'm just not that interested. And then there's another thing is that you were saying, well, when you were religious and then you became not religious, I didn't go through that flip-flop. It's not been an issue for almost as long as I can remember.
That is exactly what my wife says, too. Oh, really? She didn't grow up religious, and the word atheist means nothing to her, even though it would probably fit. But it doesn't. She doesn't describe herself that way.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up religious either, but I think part of it has to do with the fact that I can use this word and it's a kind of a shortcut to say, like, a lot of things about me. But it's also about people who grew up in a small town or in the South or somewhere where being non-religious isn't just it's not just a nothing thing. It's dangerous, frankly. And I think, to me, I use the label not only because it describes my set of beliefs in terms of God, but because I want to put myself out there as like, hey, I am this person who doesn't believe in God. I am this atheist, and guess what? I'm not a monster. And if your kid is an atheist, that's okay too. And maybe it's an oversimplification of things, but I don't know. That's my thought.
I've heard from plenty of people who get labeled as atheists that they're like, I don't even see the need for the word because we're not a unicornists either. But in a world where so many people believe this stuff, it makes sense to have a label to describe that other side.
Well, it seems to me that it's a word that comes with a fair amount of baggage.
Oh, yeah.
Presented or slapped on you by actually the people who aren't particularly,
fond of the
term.
Fond of you.
No, fond of you
or
fond of atheists. So they go, you're an atheist.
Yeah.
So
and I think part of that, I like that because I get to tackle that stigma head on.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I enjoy the word.
Well, that's fine. It's an opening gambit that I'm not particularly interested in.
What sort of reaction do you get from Star Trek fans who see the show? It means a lot to them for secular reasons or otherwise. What sort of feedback did you get when you were on that show that really meant a lot to you?
Probably the thing that comes to mind right off the top is that, and I'm seeing it now more because it's been 29 years since I did my first show, is that this show provided families a opportunity to share so that I meet people who say, this is my mother or this is my father, and we would sit down and watch the show together when I was young. And this is my child here. And we sit down and do that. So 3 generations. And so because these, as I said before, are teleplays, they're word heavy, they're about ideas. Star Trek is about ideas, it's not really about action, right? It was an opportunity for these 3 generations to talk about issues that were essentially humanistic issues, and to talk about them together and to share something and to have time that they experience together that they really cherish.
Do you think we still have shows like that now?
I don't know. I'm not a big watcher of things. I know that because there are so many shows. I mean, when I was a kid, there would be 3 shows, three channels, okay? So if you went to school the next day, you could say, oh, did you see, whatever, Star Trek or Have Gun Will Travel or something like that. Now I don't think that exists quite in the same way. Certainly movies that they can share, but it's much more fragmented now.
When What season of Breaking Bad were you on? Was it the second season?
Second season.
Second season. So when you stepped in, it wasn't the phenomenon that it became.
Right.
Because it really started taking off around that time.
Mm-hmm.
What was the buzz around that like? When you were making that, did it feel like this is going to get traction, people are going to react to this, like this is...
Yeah, when you walk onto a show, you can tell whether it's a sort of a run-of-the-mill boilerplate type of show or whether there is buzz. And you know it almost immediately. And there's no question that they knew that they were doing something special. When I came on Breaking Bad, I went, "Ooh, this is special."
How did you tell?
Well, I mean, you can just people are they're sort of at the top of their game. There's a lot of attention to detail. There's a lot of desire to get it right, to really sculpt the scenes to make it special, as opposed to just look. Let's finish the day. Did you get all the lines out? Are they what was written? Is it halfway decent? Let's move on.
But so the way you're saying that, it sounds like those boilerplate shows, if they had those people who could put that attention to detail, they too could be at the top of their game as well. It seems like there's a lot more than
on
that.
the writing.
Yeah.
It just depends on you could put a lot of detail into material that is really not good, and it just doesn't hold the weight of a lot of attention. And then there are shows. I'm not going to even mention them, but I mean there are shows out there. You just kind of go, oh my God, it's just junk.
So what are your coming plans now? What are you working on in the future?
Well, as I said, I just finished this play, and I am directing an opera in a couple of weeks, the workshop of a new opera in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And then I am enjoying my two children who live overseas are coming for a big family thing, which will eat up about 3 weeks in July, and then August I'll start looking around for more fish to fry, as it were.
Have you directed before?
I've directed a number of times.
And what do you learn
mean
about
TV shows? No.
Okay, what do you learn about from that side? Because you've now been then many times on both sides of the fence. What do you like about directing that you may not be able to get from the acting?
The difference that I like about directing is that you get to see you are creating the whole, and your responsibility is the creation of that whole picture, all the components. So whereas as an actor, your responsibility is to do your job as best you can, and to fit in and to make the project work. But you are not fixing other people. You're not fixing the writing. You're not making choices on the costumes or how the lights go or any of those other things. Your job is to be very singular and to do what you need to do. Whereas the director, of course, if it's an opera and a big one, it's like standing in a 3-ring circus.
Do you have a background in opera, in music in general?
I do. My father was involved with the Philadelphia Orchestra, so wow. I sort of grew up. I grew up around classical music. I'm not a musician, but I created a lot of shows for symphony orchestras, sort of theatrical shows that included symphony orchestras, included a lot of music, mostly that would give context to music, what was going on when Beethoven did his Fifth Symphony or the Rite of Spring, what that was like, and then I also was the host of the children's concerts for the LA Phil for I think I can't remember 3 or 4 years. So, yeah.
Excited then.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun project.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on your
No, you're
award.
welcome. Oh, well, and thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
our pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye-bye.